This webinar is sponsored by NEC Corporation, a $37 billion technology leader with over 100 years of innovation. Their ProgrammableFlow network suite was the first commercially available enterprise-class SDN solution to leverage the OpenFlow protocol. Thank you for your time and interest in NEC's ProgrammableFlow network suite.
This sponsored webinar is one of many IP Space Data Center webinars. You can register for live sessions, buy the recordings, or get access to all of them with a yearly subscription. For more information, visit ipspace.net/dc. Obviously, you have to do some initial configuration on the individual switches. And either you do it through CLI or you do it through DHCP, depending on what switches support. If nothing else, you have to configure the IP address on the control plane network, and you have to tell the physical switch that it has to connect to the OpenFlow controller. And then all the rest is configured through PFC. And PFC has 4 major configuration mechanisms. You can use CLI, or you can use GUI. And there's a GUI client for Windows, and there's a web-based interface. So you can have either a standalone Windows application or a web-based interface. And then there's the REST API, so-called Web API, and you can either use JSON or XML format, whatever you prefer. And there is an OpenStack Quantum API. And the functionality of all this is very similar from what you can do, only the presentation format is different. So here are a few CLI examples. How do I connect a virtual bridge with a router? First, I start the definition of a virtual tenant network, and then I start the definition of virtual router. I have an interface here with an IP address. Then I have a virtual bridge, which has another interface, and then I have a virtual link, which links this bridge, this interface on this bridge, with this interface on the router. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. You configure the virtual tenant network, let's say in this case, through the CLI. Or this is the Web API version of the same thing. In Web API, you're doing post requests through HTTPS to the PFC. These are the URLs you would use in your calls, and this is the JSON payload that you would be sending to the web server. So you see, for anyone who is familiar with REST programming, this is really a piece of cake. And if you don't like JSON, you can use XML. You only change the suffix in the URL, and you can send XML data to the ProgrammableFlow controller. The same thing works for querying. So here I've shown how you configure individual things. You can use other API calls to get physical topology, to get the logical topology, to get the configuration, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you can actually query PFC and get the physical topology of the network, or you can get the virtual topology of a virtual tenant network. And as one of the attendees just remarked, it does make the whole thing open to an external orchestration system, which can use the REST API for either configuration or visualization needs. And one very popular case of an orchestration system is OpenStack. What we have now with the new release of ProgrammableFlow is the Quantum plugin, which connects to the PFC Web API server. So we can now use either GUI with native API or whatever cloud orchestration software that you write yourself, or OpenStack with Quantum plugin, and then you have the OpenStack API. And Quantum also works with the other OpenFlow controller from NEC, the open source one. And here down below, we have the virtual tenant networks of PFC. So you can use PFC today if you're deploying OpenStack, and it will configure the network for you. Can you push individual flows from GUI to the switches?
It does not provide interface for individual flow level, as the VTN is the only interface you have, but there is a low-level interface to the controller you can use for pushing individual flows. But in that case, you would not be able to use the VTN because in that case that conflicts. So you have to use either the VTN way or directly OpenFlow style flow injection.
So you can use low-level flow injection, but in that case you can't use VTNs. If you have questions after watching this video, send a tweet to @IOSHint or send me an email using contact form on ibspace.net, where you'll also find information about other data center webinars. For all commercial questions and programmable flow evaluation requests, please contact NEC.